Hey, what's up, guys? It's hopefully your boy G. Hopefully you guys can hear me loud and clear. We're here for RaceFace round 6, which is obviously part of season 2, and I'm joined by a special guest this evening as well. So I won't be solo in the booth. Last time we had Shan, whatever. I keep calling him the wrong names. He's going to shout at me if he watches again. He might be back next week. He had to work, so I had to import someone all the way from the U of K, and that's of course Mr. Ryan Gill. Ryan.
Hey George, it's nice to be here. Flown in over the last few hours. It's been quite a journey from the very wet UK to the lovely South Africa. Although we're casting at the Nürburgring here tonight, so yeah. But thank you for inviting me along. It's going to be interesting to commentate on some South African racing.
Yeah, I mean you've definitely made comments before that you were sad that I left you out of the comms box. So hopefully you're happy that you're finally here. So we got an hour and 25 minutes of racing. We're coming into the end of quali at the moment, so we can get all of that kind of going. We'll jump into those screen overlays. If you guys can also just let me know if the sound sounds okay, if everything sounds good. If you can hear Ryan, if you can hear the cars, those are all good signs of things to come. So let me just get Ryan on the cam one more time so you can see that beautiful face. And we were saying he's been working on his tan. So if you guys could just leave some appreciative comments on Ryan's tan, that would also be pretty great. So 3 minutes left of quali. Let's jump over to our race scene for the moment, and we'll get things underway. So obviously Ryan at the moment looks like Jordan Sherritt sitting right at the top of our leaderboard. Now it's Jordan's first time racing here, so he's kind of joined a little bit late, but But at the same time, he's just one of the quick drivers, so I'm glad to see him here. I'm definitely going to give people a run for his money. That means that he's coming in here, Ryan, without ballast.
Yeah, that's going to play a massive part, and it could be one of the parts that, you know, we see here in qualifying taking an effect. I mean, 54.3, incredibly impressive lap around the Nürburgring, and of course that puts him 7/10 up from second place. Now, obviously, he did say doesn't have any ballast, isn't running any ballast because it's the first time out here today. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares in a race condition, because of course, you know, qualifying is very, very different to the race, as you mentioned earlier. It's an 85-minute race. You need to manage your tyres over 85 minutes, you know, especially, I think we do have a mandatory, do we have a mandatory pit stop here today?
Yeah, there is a mandatory, oh, sorry, I was just gulping down water at that time. There is a mandatory stop coming up, so they do have to pit. I think in terms of requirements, they just have to pit within the window. So 45-minute pit window that opens up. They can do what they want in terms of strategy there. So to be honest, it's going to be pretty interesting. Pit strategies, I think, will come into play. I'm always bad at really predicting them. So in all honesty, I try and stay away from it. It looks like Arno Versace is going to get himself. I need to just reconnect my broadcaster app here quickly, Ryan, because I'm pulling up. You know when you get that whack info. So
yes, the good old broadcasting tool.
Yeah, so I'll bring us back on cam for a moment so we can earn cam bucks via donations. You know, this is how we have to earn incomes these days. You know, so Ryan, put your shirt on, please.
I mean, it's a good thing that we have got one of my webcam issues sorted by turning the lights off, because if not, I can guarantee that there'd be a few people blinded at the moment by this magnificent white shirt, which is from a brand I will not name because we're not sponsored by them. So
I like that.
Whilst George gets us back into the broadcast, we're currently looking at one of the White Rabbit gaming cars. That's Jason Absmeyer's car, the number 90 Porsche. And something that George will obviously like a lot about this series is something I noticed earlier. There's a lot of Porsches here.
There's a lot of Porsches, and full disclaimer on the White Rabbit gaming side, of course, that's my team, and Jason Absmeyer and Bruno Kedili racing for the White Rabbit team. So I've really stepped away from things in terms of driving, as Jason does a big drift for us as well in the Porsche, and you know, nothing better for me than a drifting Porsche. But yeah, so a little bit biased on my side. So luckily we have Ryan to unbias me. So if we're focusing on White Rabbit cars too much, we'll know that there's a little bit of bias coming in as I switch over to Bruno. Just, you know, for a bit of bants, we see another White Rabbit car. So Bruno also joining us a bit late in the White Rabbit team. So good to have him with us. Unfortunately, he's been locked into the Merc for all the series that he's currently running in. But hopefully we can. He'll listen to me and switch over to a Porsche. As you can see, Ryan, it does feel like a Porsche Cup. It is something that we feel like is a little bit exclusive to South Africa, because we don't see it in the European series really here. It's not as many Porsches as what you'd see like here tonight.
No, definitely not. There's definitely not as many Porsches, for example, in some of the series that I cast, bar the Porsche Cup, of course, but that would make sense in and of itself. One thing I have just noticed is that Sherritt has just set a new personal best on the final lap of qualifying. That is a 1:53.973. Absolutely unbelievable. Getting into the 53s right at the end of qualifying, 7/10 up from second place, which is also another Audi, interestingly enough.
Yeah, so a bit of a German battle for the top three. Jason's going to slot in for third in the Porsche. So the Audis taking first and second, Porsche third, Bruno Cahill taking fourth, then Antal in his Porsche will start in fifth place. We'll do a full run through as we get over to the end of quali and jump into the race. So of course it's round 6. Ryan, do you have the current standings at all by you, or do you want me to just update you on who's currently leading and that kind of thing?
I do have the current standings to my left at the moment. One quick disclaimer: I'm not great with South African names. I know George has made it a point many a time on the streams I've been with him that he can't do any name that isn't English. Or some of the English names he does struggle with occasionally. But these are South African names. I'm going to try my best. But leading the championship at the moment, 104 points, is Morgan McCull, I believe that is. Followed closely in second, 9 points behind by Bruno Cadil. And then in third, it is Charles Vilken, I believe, with 75 points. So a bit of a gap there, 20 points between second and third. Kieran Patterson has fourth place with 71 points. He's just 1 point ahead of Arno Visage, or Visagier? I can't.
So in Afrikaans, that's Visagie. So you have to kind of like Visagie. It's
interesting.
I mean, I don't even do it well. Like you said, I struggle with English names. I struggle with Afrikaans names. I kind of struggle with all of them. But yeah, like you said, the championship led by McCall at the moment. But he's not racing tonight. He's a bit sick. So his younger brother, I believe, Junior McCall, is racing tonight. They've both been picked up by a local team called ATK Arena. He's just gotten a new rig sent through to him, so I believe he'll be joining up for the race in his brother's place. Well, not really in his brother's place, but he's racing for himself, but testing out the new rig. We're about to get underway with our full formation lap. It is going to be an absolutely incredible race, an hour and 25 minutes. These guys are the pro division, of course. There's 3 tiers that are being run by RaceFace. So if you guys are keen to still register up, you can head over to RaceFace.Pro and pretty much get yourself registered up. Even if it's the last rounds, it doesn't matter. Look at Jordan Sherritt. He's in here as a late entry and qualified himself on pole position, Ryan.
Yeah, it just goes to show that if you have the skill to do it, you can just come in, have some fun, and show what you've got, and maybe look towards the following season if you want to maybe have a go for a championship. We've had it all the time in various other series that we've had, where we've had people join midway through or towards the end of a championship, and you've seen the way they've performed, and you think to yourself, wow, if you joined at the start, would be well in contention for a championship. So yeah, it's always worth signing up for 1 or 2 events towards the end of a championship, get a feel for what a series is like, and if it's the right fit for you, maybe consider committing to it full-time next season.
Come in at the end, it doesn't matter. You can then sign up for season 3 when it opens up. You make sure you're in the Discord. So there is a Discord for the RaceFace players to discuss things. Stewards are there as well, so there are penalty points. So if there are steward inquiries, please make sure to log them. Let's do a quick run through of our grid for today. Starting in first place, of course, will be Jordan Sherritt in his Audi. Of course, the second Audi being followed up there with Arno Visagi starting second. Jason Absmeyer in the first Porsche starting in third. Bruno Kedili will start in fourth place. Mark Antal will start in fifth. Sixth place for Daniel Skuman. Seventh place for Dian Kapp. 8th place for Victor de Kock. 9th for Paul Gaber. 10th will be Charles Wilken. 11th will be George Wild. 12th will be Keegan Masters. 13th will be Bernard King. 14th will be Johan Bego Grabler. Daniel Rowe will start in 15th place. 16th place for Junior McCall. And that's, of course, Morgan's younger brother in that blue Porsche. So just watch out for him. He's got things to offer. Starting down the order in 16th. Francis Vogel in 17th. 18th for Sebastian Janssen in that Ferrari. 19th for Kieran Patterson. Heinrich Hatting starts in 20th position. 21st for Neil Berger. Corne Strauss from EKZ starts in 22nd with Sean Buck starting close behind in 23rd. Amrish Surneren will start in 24th. Noah Hendricks in 25th. Arno van Mansberg in 26th. Marco Pirelli in 27th. Alan Patterson in 28th. Jason Gray in 29th. Bertus Hugo in 30th. And rounding up the order, Jason Isherwood in what is most definitely a RaceFace themed color Bentley with a little bit of dash of chrome. We talk about colors, Ryan. Are you a fan of this paint scheme? I know Fabian, our other Racing Club International homie would most definitely appreciate the color job on this back marking Bentley.
Oh god, he is a fan of purple and pink, I can tell you that much. He also does like that blue, I would have to say. I think Fabian would have quite a few positive words about the Bentley, but as the drivers round the final corner and they are lined up in a 2x2 formation, we are ready to go green for 85 minutes of racing here at the Nürburgring. And the two Audis at the front get away well, but the two WRG cars behind are right on their tail as we come down into turn 1.
Yeah, turn 1, definitely want to make yourself space. Don't want to get caught up with anybody in the field. It looks like our front pack getting away nice and clean. It looks like Arno going to hold on to that inside line. Defending against Jason Absmeier, he's got to hold on to that second place. But they need to both remember they can't let Jordan Sherritt run away from the field. So any battles here are definitely going to be benefiting our race leader at the moment, Jordan Sherritt. You see him just leapfrogging away from the Porsche and the Audi in tow. The cones being obliterated, braking zone gone. That would count me out of the race. Ryan, I use those for braking markers.
Yeah, those cones are actually quite a popular braking marker for a lot of people, but this is usually why they tell you to always choose a braking marker that is a solid object that will not be leaving the scene of the racetrack throughout the race. So I would hope that a few other people around the track have got a bit more of a solid brake marker down at the moment. But Sherritt out at the front, leading the way 1.1 seconds up the road. I think that's probably going to be a bit more once we get to the next timing zone. But the two WRG cars of Absmeier and Cadilla behind, not looking like they want to let the Audi get away too far. And of course behind, just seeing the Porsche there, two Porsches behind, there's a little bit of contact as they were coming through the right-hander. I don't think there was any great deal of time lost there by either driver, but they're going to have to be careful.
Yeah, Skumon definitely showing his displeasure towards Antal in that grey and blue Porsche in front, getting the flash lights of I'm upset with you. There's different phases of flashing the lights. There's thanks for letting me overtake you safely as a front marker. There's I don't like what you did as an aggressive marker as someone trying to overtake. And that was definitely Antal getting flashed by Skuman with a little bit of displeasure. So Antal holds on to 5th. Daniel Skuman will hold on to 6th. That's the chasing Porsche. Then we've got Cap.
Don't mean to interrupt you, George, but Jason Absmeier has just made a mistake through turn 1, and that has allowed Marcantel to get past, although Jason Absmeier is going to try and take the position back. A little bit of contact there between both Porsches, but Absmeier has retrieved the place, but that bumps Bruno Cadillo up to 3rd.
Yeah, so Ansel's still trying to get past you, going to try and see if he can squeeze on the inside. Absmeier staying defensive and making sure he blocks off those markers, but that's definitely going to cost him time on running up to his teammate Bruno, who of course has been promoted to 3rd place, making the charge onto Arno in 3rd position. A little bit up the field. So, the two first position Audis definitely getting a run through on the rest of the pack at the moment. If I jump back to Charles Wilkin, it looks like he's still battling up with Dian Cap. Of course, Cap running that solo. Well, I think it's the only McLaren 720S that we've got in the party, and he's got Masters all over the back of him. So if we go onto the rear-facing spoiler cam, we can just see Shaw late on the brakes coming in side by side. They'll go a little bit of contact coming out. The pink Porsche of Masters going to try and slot through the inside of the right-hander. Side by side, they still will go. Let's see what this will do. Wilkin will have the inside line coming up to the chicane. Masters on the outside, but they will continue to give each other room. It looks like Masters just going to tuck back behind Wilkin for now, see where he can try and catch up to them. And that's given Cap just that bit of breathing room.
Sorry to interrupt you, George. Jason Absmeier is off after the chicane.
Oh, he is off after the chicane. He's parked it up the back there. Let's see if we can catch a bit of a replay there. 30 seconds back of what's happened here to Jason. So Ansel is trying to have a look side by side. They're going to go. Absmeier on the inside. He needs to tuck back on the outside, so he's going to be forced. He's gripped a lot of curb. And something looks like it's gone wrong there for Absmeier. He's just yeeted off the track, and that will promote Antal up into 4th place and allow Daniel Skuman and the rest of the order all to get themselves promoted up the order as well.
Yeah, and for Jason Absmeyer, that is not good at all. Heavy damage received on that car when he went into the wall. I think he has gone straight back into pit lane. So I think for the likes of Jason Absmeyer, that is going to effectively be race over. Quite unfortunate to see so early on, of course, but this will benefit everyone who was behind him, especially Mark and Tell, who was looking to get past him for the opening 2 laps, has finally got it done. But now it's up to the guys behind. And speaking of the McLaren that you were talking about, there is actually a second McLaren on the grid. It's all the way down in 19th place at the moment.
Oh yes, Heinrich Hutting's bright orange machine. I forgot about that one. Of course, the number 52 for Sylar Racing. Hutting currently, like you said, running in 19th. He's got Van Mansberg, the Porsche, up in front of him. Definitely within catchable distance as he can make use of the slip. Up the order though, Dion Cap and Keegan Masters. I mean, Keegan Masters has taken, he's made moves on Charles Wilkin, who looked like he's made some mistakes. He's dropped down the order all the way down to 9th and allowed Schoeman and McCall to come through. So Masters has been promoted through. This is a new driver for G4 Sim, recently just picked up. Daniel Rowe actually sent me a message today just informing me that they had picked up Keegan Masters. So Keegan, so far at the moment, definitely putting his team's name on the on the name board, because he's just cutting through the pack at the moment. He's going to go around the outside, or attempt to go around the outside of Cap. Definitely not the ideal position through, and going to try and cut back on the inside. We'll stay side by side as they come through that twisting left-hander. That McLaren struggling for grip, looks like it's going to understeer out, but not going to allow that Porsche to get on in. Defensive lines being cut out by the McLaren, and that's going to allow what I believe, that's Schoeman to try and get in on this action. So defensive lines from the McLaren, that's going to most definitely benefit the likes of the green Porsche of Schoeman up ahead.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of an honourable mention to that number 53 Bentley that was all the way at the back of the grid in 31st, up to 21st after 3 laps so far. So the number 53 Bentley, the lovely RaceFace.Pro livery style Bentley, is doing very well at the moment. 10 places gained in the opening 3 laps, and it's currently following the number 4 Ferrari of Roa.
Yeah, so of course Daniel Rowe is the teammate to Keegan Masters for G4 Sim. So Isherwood here, I like the name of his team at the moment, Retro Sim Electro. They were the Good Racers Scarlet previously. So I like the retro Miami themed flavored bubblegum Bentley. Bentley not my favorite car. I like to throw shade at Bentleys. But at the end of the day, this one is decorated to a way that I would drive it.
Well, I think if we were getting onto favourite or least favourite cars and all that, George, I'm pretty sure you and I could argue here all night long. One of the most disappointing things for me about this championship is that there's no Lamborghinis in it. So that's something I'm just going to have to stomach for tonight. But looking up at Cap at the moment in 5th place, under pressure at the moment from Masters and Schumann, getting really, really close to the back of the number 20 Porsche, almost going into the back of him, and now having to recollect himself. But one thing is for sure is that pink Porsche is definitely faster than the McLaren as he goes for a move on the inside, going through turn 3, coming into turn 4 now. The Porsche is going to have the outside line, swerves back in to maybe avoid track limits. That compromises his exit. Now it makes the green Porsche of Schumann have a look on the inside, not going to quite be able to make it done, and they hold position through that section of corners. Some great action there, and no one crashing into each other, which is always good to see. Yeah,
it's always good to see some clean driving coming out. Masters swerving back on track. That definitely cost him some of his exit speed, so that allowed Cap to just get himself back ahead. Although it had felt like Masters had, if he'd just driven back onto track, sort of not scrubbed so much speed, I feel like he'd have got the run. He had done all that work to catch up to Dion Cap, get into that position, and right at the very end just kind of scrub it all away. So Master's going to have to redo this once again. Great defensive work coming out from Cap. You got to put yourself in it to win it, and just putting that McLaren in the right place at the right time. Schoeman, of course, doing a big drift at the back, and that's going to allow Junior McCall to get a free position. It's going to allow Wilkin to regain a position as well in the background. So McCall will be promoted up to 7th place for ATK Sim Racing. He's in the academy team, I believe, at the moment. Soon to be in the pro team. You need to see these McCall brothers, Ryan. Hoping to get them over into some of the RCI events as well. Especially some of these top drivers that we've got here. I want to come and see how they stack up against European competition. And, last time they came to feature, I brought some of my team who unfortunately had some technical issues. Our best finisher was Alaric Enslin at the end of the day. And he was driving around in that meme, what was it, the Rex?
the good old Gallardo, yes, the Rex. It's an absolutely hilarious car to drive. I would never recommend anyone drive it seriously. But on the topic of sim racing brothers, in my time commentating, I've come across a variety of sim racing brothers. The Strello brothers are a great example at the moment in the SRO Esports series. RCI, I've seen the Ryan Meenan brothers, which are two brothers that I have raced against personally as well, and they are very, very quick. So, if we can get more sim racing brothers over into RCI for some of the more international races, I think that'd be great.
I love the way that I use brothers as like my friends as opposed to like actual brothers. But we do have some like father-son teams as well. I believe the Pattersons, so Alan Patterson and Kieron Patterson are a father-son team, and the McCalls are real brothers, actual brothers. So real brothers, actual brothers. I want some fast names coming in, and it looks like Dian Cap is still holding off Masters for this 5th place position. That Kai K Racing McLaren, of course, doing the hard work. A car that isn't really picked too often, and I do appreciate some variety. A big Porsche fan. I might even dabble on the fact that we have too many Porsches in our Porsche Cup series here. You want to see a bit of a mixture, but if there were going to be an abundance of a car, it's going to, of course, be the car that I most love. So it's hard for me to hate, Ryan.
Yeah, and the McLaren 720S as well. I mean, whether it's just the British, bias in me or whatever it is, but the McLaren 720S, in my opinion, is one of the best looking cars on the grid, hands down. It looks like it was designed for racing first and then to be a road car second. And that's, in theory, that's the way you would want a GT car to be made. That's how the Ford GT was made that went and won at Le Mans in 2016, I think it was, or 2017. They made the race spec first and then made the road one afterwards. And it kind of looks like the 720S is exactly like that as well. And I was so excited to see it at the Bathurst 12 hour. Kind of disappointed we haven't seen any more of it, but hopefully we can in the near future.
So I'm just looking at the little battle here, not to discount any of your beautiful bits of history that I love that you bring to my stream, and I appreciate having you here, Ryan. Let me just let you know. But the man that I called George Wild earlier, George Weed, I believe is the or Vid. I'm not sure. He hasn't told me how to say his name. It's one that's confusing me. It looks like he's got a handful on his plate. Noah Hendricks in that Ferrari from the Amped to Race community is there and giving him a bit of trouble. They were on the back of, I believe it was Victor de Kock earlier on, but he's just run up the road. So it looks like battles are definitely benefiting some of the guys trying to make their way up the order. If you can back a car up into someone else, it looks like you can try and squeeze your way. I think the next person to do that will be McCall, who makes his way up to that battle that we saw earlier between Cap and Masters, which is still masterfully being held off by Dian Cap. I say that as Masters goes side by side into the final corner. They will drag this out. Porsche versus McLaren. This is a battle that I like to see. It looks like the Porsche getting the better exit for the moment down the start-finish straight. Going to force Cap to tuck in for the slip. He's going to go around the outside. That's going to allow Masters onto the more dirty inside line. It's dirty earlier on by the pit exit, but it has worked out for Masters. It looks like he's gotten past Cap finally, but it hasn't been easy. 7 laps of hard battling between the two, and hopefully Dian Cap can maybe get back into the money shot and get onto the back of the pink Porsche up in front of him. But for now, it will be put on ice. McCall will chase down Cap. Cap settles for 6th place. And I'm going to try and see if we can find any other battles that are happening on track for us, Ryan.
Yeah, and one of the things that Masters will obviously not look to do now is obviously make a mistake and then have that McLaren go back in front of him. When you've spent 7 laps behind someone trying to get past them, and then you finally do get past, you make a mistake and they go back 3, you think, oh god, here we go again. So, you know, it's one of the things that he's going to have to be careful of, not to make any mistakes. The Porsche, such good traction out of the final corner. It's one of the things that the second generation Porsche GT3 has been known for. Its incredible traction out of the corners. So it's going to be interesting to see how the McLaren fares up. But quick shout out to Junior McCall. You mentioned him earlier on. Of course, he's sitting in tonight, not in place of his brother, but he's in here to just show what he's got. Started 16th, all the way up into 7th at the moment, so no slouch at the moment. 9 places gained from the start, and he is closing in on the back of Cap as well, only 1.3 behind.
Yeah, so Cap maybe used up quite a lot of his grip trying to keep Masters at bay. McCall having maybe a slightly easier drive, a lot of clean air. The places that he's made up have been under the fact that people have been sort of driving off the track. So for him, it's just been sort of right on by. And like you see, we see Masters and Cap both in the frame at the moment. So McCall adjusting to his new rig for ATK Racing. Definitely not the colors I'd expect from the ATK cars. But, you know, the McCall brothers have always painted their cars in sort of bright alternative colors, and this one doesn't disappoint. It's always got the matching rims with the matching primary paint. That's what they do. So the green car's got the green rims, the blue car's got the blue rims. It's very much on point with not how I dress myself, but I can appreciate it.
Well, you know my stance on liveries. Anything with a satin metallic finish gets a thumbs up from me, no matter what colour it is, because that's the best material, hands down, for a primary colour. You can't change my mind on that. But looking throughout the time at table at the moment, Sherritt leads by 8.5 seconds. That is an incredible lead after just 8 laps, coming up to 9 fairly soon. So it looks like the 137 Audi is going to have quite a dominant performance at the moment, but of course we've still got an hour and 8 minutes to go. Going to have to hold that over the course of the race. Cap, in the meantime, not losing a lot of time to Masters in front. He is starting to drop away, but not quite at the rate I would have expected him to drop away. So maybe he can stay with the number 20 Porsche here.
Yeah, you know, you're right. Masters looked like he just had way more pace, and it looked like Cap, ooh, he's made a big mistake. This is going to allow McCall to catch right back up. He hasn't been able to get onto the asphalt to get the brakes on. McCall will slide on by, and another easy breezy pass coming out for the junior McCall brother as he gets himself an extra place, and Cap in the background weaving to try and scrub some of that dirt off his tires, going to cost himself a bit of time down the straight as well. So not going to be able to look to get that position back off McCall. I would also question his ability to catch back up to McCall if he gives him the space. This you know how old he is, Ryan? 12.
Well, it's quite intimidating, isn't it? I mean, I think it's Luca Lossio as well, who I know from
Alessi. John Alessi. Yeah.
He's about 13, I think it is, and he competes in esports events and stuff, and it's just, you know, there's aliens amongst aliens, it seems. So, yeah, some people just seem to have a natural talent for racing and sim racing, and I suppose that's what separates them from normal people. But yeah, at such a young age to be able to do much better than people that are twice his age and have much more experience is absolutely incredible.
I wish that I had maybe got into sim racing earlier. I could have been maybe a little bit less rubbish at the racing and wouldn't have had to specialize in talking about it. At this point, that's where I have to sit, and for now we observe Bertus Hugo, the RaceFace.Pro owner, currently holding Alan Patterson at bay. I believe this is Senior Patterson, as he's chasing down on Hugo. They were closer a couple of laps ago. They've got some back markers in front of them to maybe try and get themselves by. I believe Cab has maybe had a bit of an issue. He's currently in 28th place, but holding good pace in these amongst the pack of 17th to 18th drivers. That's something that needs to be mentioned. You make a mistake here, you get yourself down the order, you then have to make your way back through the order as a faster driver, slower drivers to adapt to and find different braking points. It's a hard race for yourself. You play racing on hard mode by doing it, and I think there's a couple of drivers that have done so, unlike McCall, who's given himself that relatively easy race so far. Ryan, I've got a chance to also just shout out to our chat. Thanks guys for being here. I know that there's guys over on the YouTube side of things as well as on the Twitch side of life. So shout out to our Twitch viewers, our YouTube viewers. I don't quite think I have the YouTube chats working properly, so I can't see that one tonight. Last time I could only see that and not the Twitch one. Whatever. It is what it is. We continue to sail the ship. It looks like McCall has made a mistake somewhere because Cap is caught up quite drastically as they make their way down through the midway of Nürburgring here. Of course, we're here for round 6 of RaceFace.Pro. Thank you, Ryan, of course. Ryan, the Combox on Twitch as well as on Twitter, for being here with me. It's always good to have someone that's here to keep me entertained, and a privilege to have you come over and watch some South African racing with me.
Oh, it's good. I mean, you're always talking up how how fun it is to commentate on the South African races. So it wouldn't be right of me to turn down this kind of opportunity and see some of the South African talent that maybe you're looking to bring over into the more international races. So the more familiar I can get with some of these guys, it means the more information I can bring to me. To the Combox, but just make sure you don't tell Mike Jones that I've snuck out for the night, because I don't think he'll ever leave the door unlocked again.
No, we've definitely broken out of the. It would be normal games night with the Race Club International fellas. So we're going to be a little bit late, and that's because we haven't invited everyone to the party. That will probably be the saddest part of it. It looks like Hendricks and Gabba, of course. This is going to be a battle for back-marking positions. Gabba is trying to unlap himself through the field, and Hendricks just wants to get on by. He wants to have a clear dashboard and windscreen view. He doesn't want someone else's braking points interfering with his struggle to try and get back up the order. He's dropped all the way down to 14th place. He was having an awesome battle earlier on, and unfortunately hasn't been able to stick it and has fallen off. But McCall and Cap, two drivers who I thought would not stick together, have really stuck together. So my apologies to maybe down speaking to Cap. That McLaren 720 is dialed in.
Yeah, it's absolutely... he's managed to regain his composure since his mistake. He's kind of in the zone at the moment. It's one of the terms we often like to use with people competing in sports or racing of any kind. When you get into the zone, when you're really, really focused, and you can start to put in these quick laps. Just looking over at the laps, by the way, McCall has actually set a better lap as an all-time fastest lap so far this session, 56.2 to Cap's 56.6, and the previous lap McCall was just under 0.2 faster than Cap as well. But considering the way that Cap is sticking to the back of this Porsche, I don't think it's going to be like that when they come across the line in just a few seconds' time.
No, it's a strange battle, that, based on lap times. If you're just looking at best and last, it doesn't make sense for Cap to be that position behind McCall all the time. So doing a good job to hold on, even though his lap times aren't there. Looking back through our order, I just want to give us a recap of where we stand at almost the hour mark. So 25 minutes of racing have elapsed as Jordan Sherritt in his number 137 Audi leads the way here for round 6. The GT3 racing team being represented here by Jordan Sherritt, of course. And for now, it looks like our newcomer running away from the field. We've got Arno Versace in second place, almost 10 seconds down the road from Sherritt. Let's make that 13.5 seconds down the road at the hour-long mark. So Scherer really running at the moment. In third place, Bruno Kidili. He's also had a nice clean race. Just consistency have worked out. So the White Rabbit Gaming AMG, the number 1 plate, is going to be holding down that third podium spot. Just outside of that is Mark Antel in the number 111 for the Isolation 2 team. I think that's definitely a team born up during the lockdown and the pandemic. Jason Absma, of course, retired out of this order, so you won't see him in the running. Keegan Masters, though, you will. G4 Sim, the new pickup as a driver, of course, driving in the bright pink colors today. I mean, not quite bright pink. There's a little bit of matte going down. I like the blue stripe on the side, the flavor on the wing mirrors. But 5th place for Keegan Masters, a good showing here in the number 20. Junior McCall, he's still holding off Cap in 6th place for the ATK Sim Racing team. And of course, Dian Cap for Kaike Racing in the number 321 McLaren, not far behind in 7th. Jason Gray, he's got his mirrors full of Skuman at the moment. Oh, they've come to collide. A little bit of commentator's curse. It looks like Skuman almost plowing through the outside of... Let's see if we can jump back and get a little replay of that going down, Ryan. Oof.
Yeah, this is definitely not the kind of thing you want to see in a racing scenario. Not from either driver, really, from this perspective. But going through the fast right-hander here, we can see the Bentley moving over to the left side. The Porsche goes...
Oh, I think the Bentley actually squeezed a little bit back into the line. Like, he had picked a line and then he moved across. So Porsche kind of did get jumped into. Stewart's post-race, definitely going to have a look into that. It looks like he left the position to stay, and we'll fight it another day. But damage is done, and that's something that I do want to touch on, Ryan. I mean, sure, they might get a post-race penalty, but does this now affect your rear end downforce, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. There are some cars. And as we actually see another collision there from both Schumann and Gray, the Porsche may be a bit ambitious going in on the inside of the corner here. Is there enough room? Oh, I don't think he makes the corner, to be honest, if the Bentley's not there.
He was a little bit late. He looked like he was understeering out. And,
oh, dear.
And we talked about damage. Poor Jason Gray here has been battered and barged around now in the last 2 laps, and that's going to definitely affect him. It looks like Skuman has driven up the road, so he's taken that position. He's going to let it go to the stewards. He feels like Gray's maybe closed the door. I think maybe the first time there was a bit of Gray. I think the second time Skuman with his an ambitious dive down. But Marco Pirelli now for the Race in Russia Ferrari will enter into the frame because Jason Gray's got a damaged Bentley, and perhaps this Ferrari is now feeling a little bit capitalistic.
Yeah, speaking of damage, we were just going to get onto damage and how much it can affect a car going forward. There are some cars, I've spoken about how much I love the Lamborghini before. The Lamborghini is one of those cars, you damage the front or the rear, it can massively affect the stability of the car. It's already a very unstable car. But yeah, getting any sort of damage on the front or the rear can definitely ruin any kind of balance that the car has. And some of the cars are, they are indeed like this. If you get even a bit of damage on the rear or on the front, it can massively affect your lap time. And with 56 minutes of the race left, that can lose you a lot of time over the course of the race. And someone, they might get a post-race penalty or something like that, but that doesn't essentially help you, the person that, has lost so many seconds over the course of the race, not just through an incident, but through damage obtained as well. So, yeah, it's always hard to call, but I think, there's going to be more than 1 or 2 steward inquiries into that particular incident. It's going to be interesting to see what the stewards make of both those isolated incidents, where maybe one driver was more at fault than the other.
Oh, that's for sure, and I'm sure the drivers will have some words with each other in the Discord channel afterwards. Of course, that's all part of racing. And I just think that Gray, maybe should have just let the Porsche by as well, because you know, if you are facing an aggressive driver that is going to take the inside lines, you put yourself at risk, and you see what happens with the damaged car. Now, Pirelli just gets the run up through the Schumacher S's, and with the pace of his Ferrari, has breezed past on Gray. He's just losing time. His last lap time was a 2:07.6 with the incidents involved, of course, which has allowed Charles Wilkin to also get onto the back here as well. He was running up the order. Oh, that's a bit of a damaged-looking Lumo-flavored Porsche here from Wilkins. So maybe he's also running with a bit of damage. He's going to dive into the pits, in fact. So a couple of pit stops have been served here. The pit window is open. We've got 35 minutes for the guys to pit. Gray and Wilkin will both jump in. Gray potentially realizing that the damage done to his car is not worth trying to drive around for 54 minutes. So a smart decision probably to go in and possibly repair it up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have damage on your car and you know for a fact it's affecting your ability to go around the track, you know, in a more consistent or quick manner, it makes sense to come in and repair it. Just to quickly note, Cap did pit on that lap as well. So the 321 McLaren is now exiting the pit lane after serving its mandatory pit stop. I believe it has taken tyres as well as fuel. And we do also have another Porsche in the pit lane as well. It's the pink and white Porsche. Just trying to figure out which one that is at the moment.
The pink and white one is Alan Patterson.
Ah, it's Alan Patterson, yes.
So, I mean, it feels like he's been in for a little while. His Porsche didn't look too damaged up, but he feels like he's been stationary for a little while. So keep an eye out for Patterson. Of course, some of the other cars that are parked up in the pit boxes are some retirees, I suppose. It looks like who else is... No one else quite in there. Corne Strauss, he shows in our pit boxes, but he retired on lap 2 from EKZ, unfortunately, not having the greatest race, it looks like. Wilkin now going to be exiting the pits, the number 25. Oh, that's a much better view of the front of the number 25 as Junior McCall comes past to lap the number 19th, Charles Wilkin. So,
yeah, the Porsche has had some nice duct tape put on the front of that bonnet to keep it down and make sure it doesn't come up. Just a quick mention on Cap. He is currently out in 12th place. He is the highest car that has made a pit stop, and he is currently... as I say, currently lapping the other lone McLaren on the grid. Actually, not lapping, it was full position as well, it seems, with the 52 McLaren of Hatting. And yeah, that wasn't exactly a clean overtake, but the 52 McLaren was off the road before Cap actually went for the overtake, so I'm not entirely sure who I'd put the blame down maybe on there. I think maybe the orange McLaren could have done a better job, but I don't know, maybe 50-50 there.
Yeah, I mean, it could have come down just to a racing incident. I mean, if you're on the outside of the apex, you can't just turn into the inside. You do have to give a bit of room. So not entirely sure what happened there, but like you said, full position, and it looked like Cap deciding he was not at fault, so he's elected to drive on by. Of course, drivers can stop and give positions back. It does make the penalties that they get less intense if they are found to be at fault. It's also a bit of an admission of guilt automatically by, giving a position back. So, electing to drive on, Cap doesn't feel like he had closed the door. And, just a bit of a racing incident coming out in his mind.
Yeah, and obviously it's always good to see if, someone thinks they're at fault, if they, they put their hands up and they say, well, it's my bad kind of thing. But I think maybe Cap thinking to himself, well, I've already gone for a pit stop. He hasn't, maybe it's one of those things where he's thought to himself, I'm already technically ahead of him, so I won't give the place back. But it'll be interesting to see, if it's looked into after the race, if it's reported or not, and stuff like that. But Cap is progressing on as he pleases. And just a quick mention, George, I think the stream is currently looking at the rather beautiful green Porsche on your desktop.
Yeah, it does this sometimes. I need to just refix it up. We should be back again. I apologize to the stream for that. Ryan, do I still have you here as well? Because I dropped everything.
I am I am here. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yep,
but,
I can. I've got you. I've got the stream. We're all back up. I've got the timing sheets up. I wanted to just talk about some of the ballast, of course, that drivers from the previous round at Laguna Seca taking ballast over. So the drivers that finished in the top 5 all start with 50 kilos, decreasing in 10 kilo increments down to 5th place, who carries 10. So you see Bruno Cadili currently carrying 20 kilos in 3rd place. And then the next ballast carrier being Patterson Wilkin in 19th place with 40 kilos. He finished 2nd place last week. So struggling with a bit of ballast here. It does definitely change up the way the racing works. It's up for debate and definitely up for rework in terms of the amount of weight that's running. Chatted to Batters about it today as well. He's well aware that maybe it's a little bit too much and it should have been slightly adjusted in terms of maybe just going up in 5 kilo increments, with the most carrying maybe 30 or something. But for now, it has to be the same throughout the entire series. There's 10 races to go. We're on round 6, so 4 more rounds of ballast after this one will come. And I mean, I don't know what your feel on ballast on winners is. My kind of feel has been that it's something different. It's something that is being done. It doesn't necessarily mean it's fair for the best drivers, because they deserve to win every round, Lewis Hamilton style for sure. Everybody else has to put in the work, and I hear that argument. But at the same time, we've got such a varying skill gap in our race divisions that even in the pro division, you can just see there's not battles from all the way down the order. There's a couple of battles that develop later on in the race, etc. But there's a very big variation in pace, and some of the top guys, when they do come in without ballast, just run away and have a solo race, like Morgan McCall had last week at Laguna, like Jordan Sherritt is having here. So Ryan, I'm keen to hear what you feel about it.
I mean, ballast and BOP and all sorts of, engine limiting factors and all sorts of things you could do to limit the cars. They're always the topic of controversy in motorsport. It doesn't matter what motorsport it is. I remember a lot of people hearing for the first time that, when you introduce someone to GT3 and they hear about balance of performance and you explain what it is, they always say, oh, well, that's silly because the cars aren't going as quick as they could do. And it's like, well, no, they're not, but it makes better racing. I mean, if you've watched the GT World Challenge, Europe or Asia or America over the past few years, the racing's been incredible. I think the GT World Challenge Europe had 8 different winners over the course of 10 rounds. Absolutely unbelievable. You'd never get that in Formula 1 or World Endurance or anything like that, just because with no BOP to regulate the cars, it's not something you'd see. And I think it's good, but it's good in moderation. It's one of those things where I think you have to be really careful with it. They use it in the SRO Esports series. I think it's in the SRO Esports series. I think they've done it okay. I don't think it's particularly good. I think they've done it okay. It's not bad by any means. But I definitely think it could be better. And I think it has to be on a basis of per track as well, because we see it so very often that certain cars will dominate at a track, but they get to the following track and they're right down the order. I mean, one of the tracks that comes to mind with me is Hungaroring, actually. Hungaroring is Ferrari territory, through and through. It really is. But take the Ferrari to, let's think of a really bad track for a Ferrari, for example. It's home turf for it, Monza.
Yeah.
Monza is not a good track for the Ferrari. It struggles with straight line speed. It struggles with the Ascari chicane in particular. Although the Ferrari does like to eat curbs, it does struggle on the exit of that chicane. So, it's one of those things where somewhere like Hungaroring, you would hope the Ferrari gets BOP'd more than it would at Monza, but then it's a massive project to BOP cars per track rather than just across the whole season. So, the too long didn't read or too long didn't listen of all that is basically, I think it's good in moderation and it's hard to get right, but I think overall it does add to the racing.
I think that's been the focus of it, is to really just try and tighten up some of the championship battles and not have just runaway victories. And like you said, I think in moderation, that's where it needs to be. It's in its evaluation stage, As I'm gonna bring us back up onto camera here, Ryan, as we can just quickly check that the stream deck is all working still after my little disconnect and our beautiful view of my wallpaper. So hopefully you've got your shirt back on, so that I can of course just show you who the other voice is. If you guys are enjoying my Vinco flavored cap, of course I don't drive for Vinco, I drive for White Rabbit, but homies over at Vinco, I've always been close and supportive, so had their cap, so I felt like I should wear it. It would feel a little bit weird commentating on a race with my team in it and wearing their branding. So shout out to Ryan Gill, of course, all the way from the UK, commentating our race here today. 45 minutes remain of our stream session. As I don't know, Ryan, were you eating for your pets there?
Well, I was going to say I don't have any branding for a particular team as such, or esports team or anything like you do, but I do have a very nice Aston Martin racing cap that I picked up when I was at Donington Park, because I'm one of the world's biggest Nicky Team fans. So, yeah, I don't have that much in terms of racing merch like you probably do. I'm assuming you probably have all the South African merch for people like Jordan Pepper and David Perel. So I'll leave you to sort that out on stream another time. But
yeah, I'll take us back to our regular viewing. I actually I missed out on getting a whole bunch of the David Perel and Van der Linde brothers merch. But two of my friends who most definitely did, one of them is normally a caster with me, Angela Sede. Shout out to Richard and Corne Strauss, who was driving here. He obviously retired. Both of them were our VDL. I don't know, the word in Afrikaans starts with a BE and then it goes like FOK or something. We don't say it because it's Afrikaans and it's naughty. But that they are crazy about the Van der Linde brothers. The Van der Linde brothers are also doing simulator rigs. I don't know if you've seen those. Maybe the Van der Linde brothers can sponsor RaceFace one day. We can have some Van der Linde rig branding and an advert shot with something exotic. I don't know. You know, I'll just throw it out there. Batis, you need to hook it up. Speak to them, or of course Vanna from TGN. Maybe he wants to get involved. We'll just shout out all their names. Well, hopefully, it's what I've been doing with Porsche. It hasn't worked out. I've been trying to attract Porsche to just send me that beautiful green Porsche that sits on my wallpaper. When you're learning things in life, right, they tell you to envision something. You can always have what you dream, blah blah blah, etc. So I put that there, and hopefully Porsche just sends a message one day like, yo, we saw your stream, we saw that beautiful green Porsche, so we're just gonna send it to you, so you can do donuts around the parking lot.
Well, I tell you what, George. The day a Lamborghini Huracan appears on my drive will be a wonderful day for my life indeed. But in the meantime, Masters in the number 20 Porsche has picked up a 30-second stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Now this is something that we see very often. In races with pit requirements and stuff. There's always one person that goes a bit too quick into pit lane or is a bit too eager on the pit limiter button coming out of the pit lane and gets himself a 30-second stop-go penalty. At some tracks, that is race ruined.
Yeah, I feel like at all tracks, if you're in the front of the order and you're kind of at a part of the race where you can't recover from it, it could be. With Masters' pace, he's capable of doing the 155.4s that he set as his best lap time. He's going to go in, hopefully not get caught out by too many of the order behind him. But, I mean, he's got the names like Hendricks, Cap, Hugo, McCall, Antal, all that will slide on by as he goes in to serve that stop-go. So he's got big battles on his hand to make up the order to get back to 5th place if he wants to. So, you say it's on some I feel like stop-goes for speeding in the pits are almost race ruined at all tracks, depending on how you hold yourself together and come back. And maybe you've got the legs to prove yourself back again. Masters did it before, he can do it again. Type theory for GeForce Sim. So the pink Porsche Gans into the pits. Gans means go in Afrikaans, or goes. It's not really
interesting.
It's probably not used in the right way there, but I'll slowly teach you some Afrikaans, which you will never
be able to use, because it will be so wrong that when you come here for a, what did we call it last time, a safari, and you come and see the lions, that you can speak to the game rangers.
Well, I'll have to double check with Jesse Lee and Shani to verify if your Afrikaans is accurate. Because the last thing I want to do is go to South Africa and end up annoying the locals, as British tourists very often do wherever they go. But one thing I was thinking about Masters, you know where I said he took 7 laps to get past Cap, and it was absolutely horrible for him, spending 7 laps behind the McLaren. Then he finally gets past him, and I said the one thing you need to do now is not make a mistake and end up back behind that car. Well, he's gone and got himself a stop-go penalty. He's going to be behind that car, so if he comes up to the back of that McLaren again, he's going to be thinking, oh dear, is this another 7 laps behind this car?
Definitely not going to be happy with himself for doing that. So Visagie was holding down the lead, needing to serve his mandatory pit stop, so will do so. So Jordan Sherritt, who has of course been leading the race from the get-go tonight, will take first place back. Visagie in the pit stop will come out in, we're not quite sure just yet, possibly in 3rd place. Still, oh, he might have actually come out in 3rd. Bruno is only exiting or coming down the start-finish straight now, so I do believe that Visagie is going to hold on to 2nd place after the pit stops. So the Audi will stay in 2nd. Bruno,
and not to interrupt you, George, but Sherritt has a drive-through penalty.
So obviously exceeding track limits a little bit too many times then, because we don't have live stewards here, so we can only assume that that's come out from exceeding the track limits. So Sherritt will serve a drive-through, and that will play into Visagie's hands. There's not a big gap between them, and this will actually play into a couple of cars' hands.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see how this does play out in the long term of the race. Of course, Sherritt has done an absolutely incredible job so far until now, unfortunately getting a drive-through penalty. So one thing I can say is lucky it's not Spa.
You are right. The world's longest pit entry. It's okay when everyone's serving. Oh, Escherwood doing a bit of farming there. Was running in 13th. He was obviously making his way up through the order. But yeah, Bruno is also going to try and jump his way up here when Sherritt has to jump into the pits. So, a bit of an unfortunate situation coming in for Sherritt. He's going to try and get himself a little bit of space while he's got some clean air here before he has to jump in. He's got 3 laps to serve it. So the first one is complete. He'll go in for the start of his 2nd lap out with that drive-through penalty. So decisions on the cards. You don't have long to plan it.
No, he's got to come in this lap or the next lap, or he will be getting an auto disqualification from the race server, which is definitely something you don't want to do. In amongst all of this, Cap is currently in 4th place, and considering how the drive-through penalty might pan out for Sherritt, this could fall quite nicely into the hands of the McLaren, could find himself in a podium place with about 37 minutes to go. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how all this plays out. And of course, for Sherritt, once you've already had a drive-through penalty, you've had to go back into the pit lane, you've lost your rhythm, you've got to go back out there, you've got to go back and get into the zone. But the problem is, once you've already had one drive-through, it's so much easier to just pick up another and another and another through track limits, because, once you've already had one penalty for track limits, the auto stewarding system gets very, very strict with you.
Yeah, it tells you that you've made a mistake before. It says you've served your drive-through. You're continuing to mess me about, and you will continue to be punished. So once you have gone in, you then have to be very cautious. Of course, you're not going to lose too much in terms of tire temperature, not having to do a stop-go, as he will be allowed to drive on through that pit box. But it is still costly in terms of what you are going to have into your tires and brakes. So wherever you are going to come out, you're going to be facing up against a driver that's just hammered around on the last lap and come through onto the start-finish straight with pace. So Sherritt drives into the pits to serve his drive-through penalty, and this could change the race as we see it, Ryan. Arno Visagie, who holds down 2nd, is still a little way down the road. He's still going to come up to the final chicane, but I do believe that he might get onto the back end of Sherritt again. Sherritt may just continue to run away with things, but carrying that 50 k's an hour in the pit box is definitely not the way that you want to exit out onto T1. So Sherritt's coming out across the white line in just a few. We see him go down over the line. Where's Versace here? He's coming down the start-finish straight. Going to carry a lot of speed. Sherritt exits the pits here in that white Audi. We see the purple dabbed pink RaceFace themed retro sim slipstream team also now into the contention to get onto that first position from Sherritt. You just got to force him into mistakes now, obviously knowing that he's picked up those driver errors, but it will be for Versace to do some reeling in, as they would say in fishing. Not something I know much about, so saying that I'm not sure where it came in, but that's what Versace needs to do, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely needs to put pressure on Sherritt. Just make him know that, hey, you make another mistake, you pick up another penalty. This race is mine, essentially. And that's the kind of thing that you need to get into the head of the driver ahead of you, is that they don't have that room for any more mistakes. And 34.5 minutes to go is, it's quite a long time. It's more than half a sprint race. So that's plenty of time to pick up another couple of off tracks and potentially, get yourself another drive-through penalty or worse. So yeah, Sherritt's going to have to be very, very careful about how he goes about doing his laps now, because when you can't, track extend to the limit that you were before, you are more cautious, and it does slow you down significantly.
You have to drive on such fine limits, and you definitely don't want to take pressure. We're looking at Masters getting the inside run on Pirelli. This will be for 9th. So Masters trying to make his way back up through the pack, but not going to have the run through T2. T3 and 4 will have the inside line late on the brakes. Pirelli giving plenty of space, maybe too much space, because Wilkin is there as well. So this could be a double Ferrari or a double Porsche overtake for the Ferrari losing out, and we see Pirelli then losing out to Wilkin as he exits wide of that very narrow exit. You have one line to do it, and Pirelli didn't find it. Both Porsches found what they needed to do, and a beautiful bit of driving coming out from Wilkin to also just make sure that he's there on the mistake of the Ferrari to take the position of his hand. So into the top 10 for Wilkin from Sarko Esports. Pirelli will still be looking at this, wondering, how did I just lose too? So still going to have to keep the head down, stay focused, and see if he can try and get on there. Jason Gray is also a potential candidate in getting into that top 10 if the front three drivers continue to fight out. Gray, of course, did look a little bit squiggly out of a couple of the exits, like the final chicane. And so that's what made him sort of fall off the train that he was chasing down in front. So Gray, powerful retro sim electro team driver as well. The Bentley here needs to do a little bit more and get onto the back of Pirelli so that we can see like 32 minutes remaining of fighting here, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely so. And in terms of Pirelli, I'm not entirely sure if that was a mistake that led to both those Porsches getting passed, or whether he let them pass. I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of hard to see from the perspective that we had. So yeah, I mean, maybe he did just miss his braking point, maybe looking behind him. That's one of the things that is so hard to do, isn't it? I mean, when you've got a car right up behind you, it's so difficult to not look back, not check your mirrors. And I've heard from some of the esports people that I have talked to, they just don't have the mirrors on, so then it doesn't bother them. But I would probably panic if a car was right up behind me and I couldn't see exactly where it was.
Yeah,
so,
it's also like it's one of those risks, There are times that those mirrors are a savior, where you manage to avoid someone coming in that's made a mistake and preserved your race. Self-preservation in sim racing are things that need to be talked about more in terms of, people turning in on cars they know are there. If someone's had a bit of a late dive, there's no point in turning in and damaging your car. Let them have that position, contest the dive, whatever. It's not going to get looked at really by the stewards if there's no contact, sure. But, do you really want to put your car there and let it be damaged? In real life racing, your team boss would certainly not want you to just use the car as a battering ram when you feel a little bit upset that someone's missed their braking points. So, the same sort of thing should be carried over into sim racing. Of course, there's no real risk of putting your virtual car, in danger. And I think that's sometimes what leads to some of the argy-bargy racing. I watched a little podcast not too long ago. I believe it was Carl Lawrence talked about it. I think it was Craig Ecotes suggested that you should have some kind of a shocking system built into your rig. That when you pick up damage or something, you get a little shock into your system. If you bash it hard into the wall, you semi have to feel like someone revives you. I mean, not so intense, but there needs to be some kind of punishment system beyond picking up damage, because people put their cars at risk far too often. I want to just, Ryan, just go over back to Jordan Sherritt. We said he needs to get away from Visahi, and that's exactly what he's doing at the moment. So Visahi 4 seconds down the road after Sherritt served a drive-through penalty. Oh, beautifully getting past backmarker Rowe there through the chicane. Slides on by, Rowe flashing his lights to say it's a pleasure. I'm not sure that Rowe really gave Sherritt that place. Sherritt just getting the moves done. Sherritt is a real-life racing driver as well from South Africa. Definitely on the same sort of pace levels as Zahir Essa, a name that you will know, Ryan. So Sherritt, someone I hope that will come over and do a little bit of RCI racing with us. Definitely a fast South African to represent us up there. And a couple of drivers as well from the senior ATK team that aren't racing in RaceFace, but I'm racing within the actual ATK season that I want to bring across as well. So I'm one of those people that just loves the community of sim racing. I don't care what community they're from or where they are here. I do comms for a whole bunch of them. I was doing Dominus Gaming last month. They've got a season 2 that's coming up, currently doing their evaluation races on Wednesdays. So if you guys haven't registered, check out Dominus's side. But jumped over, did some RaceFace stuff last season for them when they still had Evo Media doing their production. So kind of taught some guys that had really only done FPS games and broadcasting a little bit about racing, and then just kind of evolved into just taking it on. And now I've got the famous Ryan the Combox joining me here all the way from the UK.
Well, maybe not famous quite yet, but maybe in the future someday. I would hope. I'd love to be able to make casting sim racing or real life racing a job someday. It's something that people have always complained to me about, is that I talk too much, and I think to myself now, well, maybe that's a skill set I can bring to a career someday. But I think 2020 has been a very difficult year for a lot of people. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now, politically, ethically, and of course medical wise with the global situation. So I think sim racing has come into its own this year, and there's been a lot of drama in sim racing. Let's not put any icing over the top of any of this or try and cover it up. There's been drama, there's been scandals and things that really, really don't need to be mentioned. But on the whole, 2020 has been an incredible year for sim racing. We've seen sim racing go into the limelight, and speaking of coming into the limelight, this weekend, the virtual 24-hour of Le Mans, that's going to be the highest profile sim race there has ever been.
You're not wrong.
The amount of real life talent and sim racing talent in that race, it's going to be better than the real Le Mans. In some regards, and it's one of those things where I think sim racing is it's starting to evolve from a niche it's still a niche, and I think it will still be a niche for a few years to come, but it's starting to evolve from a very exclusive club to a very, we welcome you as long as you accept, the way we want to run things and the way we operate. And I think that, Jimmy Broadbent, who is someone that I would assume many people know in the sim racing community. If you don't know who Jimmy Broadbent is, then
get out.
It's high time you do catch up on who he is. But one of his best quotes is, the cars aren't real, but the racing is. And I think that's the most important thing to say, is that the racing is still real. It doesn't matter if they're virtual cars. If the rush of adrenaline that you get from racing someone wheel to wheel for 60 minutes or more, that's something that can never be taken away from you.
No, it's exactly that. The racing is most definitely real. the emotions are there, the adrenaline pumps up, the nerves that you get before you kick off the start, going into things like quali, etc. You know, all of those translates into just adding into the fun element of what makes sim racing just so immersive and so much fun. You know, even for us, just sitting in a comms box and talking about it, you know, you mentioned it before, it's something that I'd love to do as a full-time thing one day, or even, you know, to a point where it's a big part of my life and I can still do other things. But, you know, as it goes, it's been great as a journey for me, and I've met some great people along the way, and I feel like our little scene here is just a tip of the bubble in terms of the worldwide things. You mentioned the virtual Le Mans. Can't wait for that to kick off, and you know, one day, you know, those are kind of the goals that I'd love to be involved in. You know, it's those kind of dreams and things that I'll set out there and throw to the universe and say that, yeah, I would love to commentate on a level that's out there. The SRO series, etc., are things that I would love to one day be able to see. And you know, in races like this, where we do get a little bit of a breathing room in driver spacing, and we're at that stage now, 24 minutes. It's not quite the last 15 minutes, and we don't have drivers quite on the back of their toes, but it allows us to speak about some things, Ryan, and I'm glad you kind of brought up that thing about sim racing and the boom during this sort of pandemic stage, and it's been phenomenal for me, and to see people getting eyes on it, new viewers, old viewers, drivers that haven't driven in years getting back into it, real life drivers getting involved. I think there's a lot to be said about that side. Of course, we've had some guys come in, be a little bit controversial, but for the most part, I think a lot of the sim drivers and real life drivers have a respect for one another, and it's been quite a surreal experience to, you know, talk to some of these guys in the flesh in some of the Discord channels, you know, knowing that they drive the real life version of the car that you drive in a sim, and some of the guys that drive in, you know, the ATK series as well. One of them, Jason Webb, is a drifter. You know, that's what he does. I was in Cape Town not too long ago watching the WRX Rallycross finals, and shout out to Monster Energy and Metal State for making that happen as well. Let me just plug that. But yeah, got to go and watch that, and got to see this guy drifting in his Mustang. I've got selfies of it, Ryan, that I'll send you afterwards. You know, this guy's driving now, like standing in front of his car while he's all suited up and in his car ready to go. Like I'm fanboying over it, and now he races in the pro division where I drive on a Sunday. So, you know, it's insane just how things have come together. And yeah, those controversial things that you didn't really want to talk about, you know, some of the real life drivers doing absolute terrible things, you know, just because they thought it was for a meme or for the lols. You know, those are the type of people that we don't need in sim racing, and I'm glad that, you know, when real life racing starts, they probably won't want to continue with sim racing, but we've got some phenomenal names out of it that I think will continue to wave the flag. And I think car manufacturers and sponsors are seeing what can happen in sim racing, and in terms of how branding can come out onto streams. You can get a lot more direct sponsorship out of you know, sponsoring some sim racing events than you can out of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you have to throw into getting sponsorship in a real life motorsport event. So, you know, I think that it's going to open up potentials. I think that the doors, you know, have been sort of ajarred by the pandemic, and sure, the bubble will pop, but you know, the true OGs and the people that want it to happen and want it to stay around will continue to do this.
Yeah, for sure, and it speaks volumes as well as to how much sim racing has come along over the last few months. I mean, Fanatec, for example, who, if any of the viewers tonight do not know, Fanatec are one of the suppliers of high-end sim racing gear for people, wheels, pedals, and accessories, and all that sort of stuff. That, you know, I would dare say quite a few of the drivers here tonight are probably using a mixture of Fanatec, Thrustmaster, and Logitech gear, which are the three big names for kind of entry level to serious sim racing. You know, there are a couple of other brands in there like Simicube and Heisenfeld, but that's only the real high end stuff that costs thousands on occasion. But I think it's interesting that Fanatec had a publishing to say they've had a 160% increase in orders in the last 5 months. That's incredible for a company that has built, a product on a niche.
Microphone
that is
muted.
Absolutely unbelievable. They've opened up 7 new job positions just to cope with, with what's going on. And and obviously I'm fortunate enough to know one of the people that has got into that position at the moment, who's working as an administrator at Fanatec, and it's one of those things now where it's so interesting to see sim racing evolve, and it's going in the right direction. Like you said, there are some people that haven't really been in the positive light for sim racing, and they have been punished accordingly by the people in charge of the events. And and let's let's take it super serious for a moment. A driver or two drivers have lost their jobs through what they've done through sim racing.
And I think that both circumstances are very much valid reasons.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To me, a lot of people have been like, yeah, you can't like lose your job over something. It's cheating on a level where you're representing a brand, or misrepresenting them, not always cheating, and just being a general nuisance and bringing a bad light to a brand that you represent. Who they're taking this as seriously as they would something else, and you're not. So for them, they'd rather find someone that will represent their brand. And if you can't do it in entirety, then that's what it is, living for a brand. Eat, sleep, dream, talk, and always uphold your team's name whilst you're under that contract of them. Those are all the contractual obligations that they would have signed. It's very much like doing anything or signing up for a company. You can't go and badmouth them on your Facebook page. It's very much related to that, and thousands of viewers connected, and thousands of dollars being spent on or when we convert it into rands, it's all being spent in huge volumes to try and upskill and increase the viewership value. And people not taking it seriously just bring a bad light to it all. So I'm very glad that the punishments were, carried into a real life side. People will say that it's unfair and they deserve other chances. And you know what? Sure, they probably will get picked up somewhere along the line. I don't think things like that are remembered forever. You get tarnished with a brush, but it stays there. Talking back about the racing as well, Ryan, we just continue to follow Sherritt, who is monsters his way up to another 14-second gap on Arno Versace. So just goes to show that some of these guys just have insane pace, even in the pro division, just splits amongst them.
Yeah, we've seen this in a couple of other races that you and I have casted before, that there are people that, even amongst pro drivers, they are on another level, and it's kind of one of the drives that we're seeing today here from Sherritt. And is it something that maybe you can carry over into every race? Well, you won't entirely know.
Well, hopefully,
hopefully,
like the theory of now, he runs away with this race, he gets 50 kilos into the next round. If he monsters away with 50 kilos, then there's just something really special there. But 50 kilos is a lot of ballast to take, so you really will have to be on your toes to try and win every round, because you will be carrying it. So we generally have seen quite a variation in race winners here today. And because Jordan Sherritt's joined up, he's carrying no ballast and is an insanely quick driver. So it doesn't surprise me to see where he sits. Versace having a great drive, holding down second, and Bruno Cadili, of course, carrying with the ballast on his car, is doing great in third place. So Dian Cap can still catch up, get himself onto the podium in fourth place for Kai K. He doesn't quite have, he's jumped up in front of McCall again. We saw McCall was sitting behind Cap, remember, then they battled it out, got in front. Then after the pit stops and whatever's happened to McCall, it looks like Cap's come out victorious in terms of holding on to that fourth place position. So taking home as many points as he possibly can, unless one of the order in front of him makes a mistake in these last 16 minutes, which is possible, Ryan.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, just to touch on the ballast of adding 50 kilos to someone's car, it's almost like adding the weight of the person to your car. It's like having an extra person in the car next to you. Just as kind of an example, I mean, I'm a lightweight, dead lightweight. I weigh under 60 kilos, so it's kind of like putting me in the car next to you. Not that anyone would ever want me in the car next to them. God, I drive them mental. But yeah, it's 16 minutes left. Not too long left in the race, and I think it's going to be quite interesting here to see what happens with McCall and Antle, because only 6 tenths between them here, 5th place up for grabs. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens here, but also to touch on the battle for 7th place. Schumann, the number 37 Porsche, is in 7th, and Masters behind him, only 8/10 behind as well. And as we come into the final 15 minutes of the race, it's all starting to close up together now.
The timing pylon showing a lot of Porsches in view, a lot of them not in the, or a lot of them in the front running here. 5th, 6th Porsches, 7th, 8th, 9th Porsches, 10th the lonely Boatley for Jason Gray. But Masters and Skuman now get through the Schumacher S's, back down hard onto the brakes. They will go for the tight left-hander, and it's all about carrying as much speed as you can. Masters later on the brakes, stays on the back of Skuman and wants to use the slip that they get after these double rights to now hold on to the back. So into the slip, Masters goes, the pink Porsche from the G4 Sim team versus the DS Motorsport Daniel Skuman Racing, the number 37. Through the chicane, Masters going to have to tap onto those brakes as we see them close the door, close the gap. Skuman stays defensive. Wilkin in the background, that's for 9th. He's also contesting to get himself up the order. Skuman needs to stay as defensive as possible. Is going to stay in the middle of the track, going to force Masters to go around the outside. Masters here will be struggling to stay on the outside line and not lose out time to Wilkin behind, but does a great job of just keeping the traction on to get into T2. Definitely a little car's length coming out from Skuman, so doing good work at the moment. But look at that Wilkin Lumo highlighter coming into the party, Ryan.
Yeah, the pink Porsche sandwiched between 2 green Porsches at the moment, so very much the Porsche Cup in effect, despite the fact that we only have 1 Porsche in the top 5. So Porsche's battling out here at the moment, and actually Masters just slightly getting a bit too close onto the back of Schumann, unsettling him. And that means that Wilkin is going to take the opportunity to mug them both. And Masters backs off as well to make sure he doesn't take the position from Schumann, to put his hands up and say, you know what, that was my bad. I got a bit too close, unsettled your car. I don't want to take the place off you.
Let's see that replay coming in from the heli perspective. Let's watch that pink Porsche. Comes in, tries to stay on the back, gets on a little bit early, does tap him around. Oh, beautiful driving coming out from Wilkin to shoot himself up the order. The yellow flags would definitely have not been into effect just yet, and going to take 2 positions around the outside whilst 2 slow cars stay on the inside. So Wilkin jumps up to 7th place in 1 corner. Masters and Skuman are going to be licking wounds. Skuman hasn't lost out too hard. He still holds Masters back. Masters didn't get on the gas. A good bit of driving to just sort of take ownership of that little tap coming in. Of course, the follow car is always responsible for that distance. Well, I say always, but if the front car...
Sorry, just to interrupt you there, but Masters had a really big squirm coming out of the final corner, and that's lost him a significant amount of time. As you can see, he has dropped back now, and that's going to cost him... it's going to cost him quite a lot, because obviously with 12.5 minutes to go, he's now going to have to close that gap back up. But just on the note of when he did go into the back of Skuman, it's quite nice to see someone obviously make a mistake and then put the hands up, say, look, it's my bad, I'll back off, you can have the place back, and stuff like that. It's always good to see that sportsmanship.
For sure, it's something that you don't see all the time, so when you do see it, it is nice to see. So it looks like, looking at the timing sheet here at Heinrich Hutting, he just had issue with, Buck getting past him. Something to talk about with Buck in just a few. But I noticed that Bernard King on the timing sheet has not got that little mandatory stop next to his name. Looking like he hasn't done his pit stop, so big penalties. I believe it's a disqualification at the end of the race for not doing a mandatory stop, right?
Yes, it is. It is a disqualification as far as I'm aware. So yeah, unfortunately for the likes of King, he's not going to be picking up any points, because the moment he crosses that line, he's going to get a very unfortunate DSQ sign next to his name. As I have just seen Antel and McCall go side by side into turn 1, and it seems that Antel has come out on top and has moved up into 5th place.
Let's see if I can try and get that on the replay. So McCall ahead on the drag down the start finish straight. It looks like... Yeah, it is. McCall is definitely... Oh, he's not going to defend the inside line. So he is going to try and cut back and try and carry as much speed as he can. But good bit of driving there from Ansel to just make sure he got the early inside line. Picked up some of the rubber marbles, and definitely a sacrifice worth making as he makes his way up into 5th place.
Yeah, and of course now he finds himself 14 seconds back from the McLaren of Cap, so realistically with 10.5 minutes left to go, he's not going to be closing that gap. So I think that's 5th place locked in for him, assuming he doesn't make any more mistakes.
Or run out of fuel. That's something that I've seen people do as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so running out of fuel at the end. I wanted to talk about Sean Buck earlier on. So Sean Buck currently running in 25th in this race. Shout out to his performance on Sunday. He actually came 3rd place in the ATK Pro AM series. So up here in Pro for this division, but 3rd place for Pro AM on ATK on Saturday. Obviously, every league seeded a little bit differently, but up here with the pros is Buck, and currently holding down 24th place. So I wanted to publicly just give him a little congratulations on his Sunday performance. It's always good to see drivers. He comes over from the GT Sports side of things, the logistical nightmare community. So he's come over onto the ACC side of life, and that's always cool, right? Getting into community interaction, and they can share GT Sport things in our discords, and because everything is racing related at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people have their opinions about each sim, and positive and negative, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion.
Oh, Gabba, did you, in the background of the Skuman and Masters battle, sorry Ryan, you just see Gabba throwing it away after the final chicane, and side by side, Masters and Skuman will go down the straight. Masters on the inside line. Skuman does not have the drag here. It looks like he is going to be forced to brake later to try and close the gap down, and he does have a very nice exit. It looked like he had to kind of get off the accelerator to stop himself from running into the back of Masters, but Masters for now holds off Skuman as they go through turn 2, running wide for both of them. Of course, track limits, if you don't have too many left at this stage, you do have to be careful of where you're going, and Masters going to get by beautifully on Skuman. A beautiful bit of driving being displayed by the G4 Sim driver in the pink Porsche, and makes his way up into 8th place as we've got 8 minutes to go of racing, Ryan.
Yeah, we do, and as we have 8 minutes to go into turn 1, I'm looking at Daniel Roa in the number 4 Ferrari at the moment, putting pressure on Sunarain, I think that is, in the 27 Bentley. So just as we look away from one battle, another one is materializing itself, and the Ferrari is going to be up on the inside of the Bentley through turn 3, and he's going to make that look very, very easy indeed. And the Ferrari makes up a place and up into 12th.
Yeah, too deep for the Bentley. A color scheme that I'm also a big fan on is Amrish Sinarin's blue Bentley. I don't know why, but it just has something to do with it, that the chrome blue, it appeals to something in me. So again, I feel like a lot of Bentleys being complimented in the stream, which is very strange, and I wonder what is wrong with me. We see Kadili coming around to lap Sinarin in 3rd place for Kadili on the podium there. Let's just quickly recap as our 7 minutes of racing mark is here. Up in the front, Jordan Sherritt for GTWR Racing runs away from Arno Visachi for Retro Sim Slipstream, and Bruno Kadili sits in 3rd place. We've then got Dian Cap in the number 321 for KK Racing in his McLizzy 720, and Mark Ansel in 5th place in his Porsche. Junior McCall, another Porsche, currently sitting behind the back marker of Patterson, a lap down in 17th. But Junior McCall in 6th place, followed up by Charles Wilkin in 7th, Keegan Masters in 8th, 9th for Daniel Skuman, and 10th place for Jason Gray is our top 10 for the last 6 minutes of racing. And let's find some battles on track, Ryan. So Van Mansberg and Hugo, according to the timing sheets, are getting themselves a little bit closer and more excitable. So Batis Hugo in the most definitely RaceFace themed Bentley. I mean, he does own the organization, so the purple and black definitely going to complement the overlay that we've got at the bottom of the stream. And of course, big shout out to Batis for putting all of this together, organizing all the servers, the awesome website, the stats that he can provide. It really is top-notch service casting for RaceFace, and the man treats me with the most utmost respect and dignity. When he messages me, we have great conversations, and it goes a long way working with people that are like-minded in the community, right? I mean, you can go and understand this. I mean, it's great, right? I mean, that's how we all get along on the race department, race department powered racing club online. I mean, it's pretty much our integration with them that enabled us to still keep our community going. I mean, we had different places that we could have gone, but it was just, everybody wanted to stay together. We wanted to do it for the fans and the races and each other, because it was like a home. And yeah, so Batis Hugo, one of those people that is definitely doing great things for sim racing here in South Africa. And Ryan, you have to come and join me on a Monday night for some Monday night racing. It's like casual racing that we try and encourage new drivers to come through, and we have like 3 different splits. So if you're free on a Monday and we don't have casting obligations, you must come and do some racing there. It's always good fun.
Yeah, I'm always up for some racing, but yeah, it's one of the things you did just touch on there. Having a good working relationship is so important in any community, it really in any business or any kind of working scenario. And as you said, our partnership with Race Department, we had so many positive talks with them, and we had positive talks with other people as well. It can't be denied that we did have a lot of positive talks with a lot of people that will remain unnamed for legal and privacy reasons. I specifically, I've mentioned this to a couple of people. I was reached out privately, by 2 different communities to say, look, do you want to join our community? I'm only looking for you realistically, or maybe someone else. And I was like, well, look, I'm not 100% opposed to the idea, but realistically, I want to go where everyone else is going. I'm happy with the resolution that we got. I'm very, very happy with it indeed. And I was glad that we were able to cast our first broadcast with the new community last week. That was quite enjoyable, but yeah, it's always nice to see the people that have the ability to put these events together and put these communities together to go out and do it. And it feels nice for me to kind of be a co-founder of one of these communities now, especially considering that I do not have the financial capability to start a community like the one that we've got started. So we have a massive thank you to say to Race Department for providing us with the technical resources that they have given us.
For sure, and I think it opens the door for what I want to do with the South African side, to get more drivers internationally. And it's one of the esports that isn't really factored in by ping, like the first person shooters, etc. You need to travel over to Europe or America to go and be able to like even seed or qualify for things. So sim racing doesn't have that boundary, and I just want to continue to expand it. We are coming into the closing phases of our 6th round here for RaceFace.Pro Season 2. Sherritt's our leader, currently really making things look rather easy. Maybe drifting the Audi a little bit, getting a little bit oversteer for the fans. All the tires are starting to squeam off, but it's been a great race so far, and not extremely busy as Veed and Gray goes side by side into T1. Looks like Veed actually going to get the run down. He's in 6th, Jason Gray in 11th, in 10th, and Jason Gray in 11th. The Bentley not quite there to be able to do anything, but this is where all the drivers are feeling the pressure. 2 minutes to go, the clock is ticking down. You know that you just have to stick it out. The leader most likely has this lap and 1 lap to do. So really the second last lap going down for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, and just to touch on something you mentioned about sim racing isn't too affected by ping. I think it's a great point to make on that. And but one of the other points to make is, if you've ever seen the GT Sport esports events, the Nations Cup or whatever it is that they call it now, it keeps changing name every year. But you know, the real life events where they have the drivers in the studio and the atmosphere with the live crowd and the broadcasters and everything is so incredibly well put on. And who knows that maybe in a year's time, George, you know, we improve our casting ability. Maybe you and I can stand on a stage together in person and cast the SRO series. But
yes, maybe one day, as our leader goes on to the final lap, maybe one day I'll be able to say people's names as well, which I think is an important part of being invited to such things. I would probably call this gentleman Daniel Schumann or something that wasn't the right way to say it in whichever language they're native to. You've heard me say the European names wrong. Our leader is on his final lap, so we'll switch over to a camera angle with him because we don't have too many on-track battles, Ryan. If you see some action popping off, you just tell me. But for now, we'll follow with Sherrod, who hasn't had too much screen time as he's yeeted away from any potential damage. I mean, it would have been not damage, battles. It would have been an hour and 25 minutes of Hot Lap Simulator 2020 Isolation Edition if we had stayed on him the whole race. He really has had no one to contest with other than the bugs and the rubber marbles on the track, which have dirtied up his Audi. That has really been his only influencing factor. He's had a clean race and not a surprising lead, in my opinion, for someone coming into a series that has ballast for previous winners and doesn't need to carry any over. But most certainly in the future for the closing rounds, Sherrod, Ryan, will be a driver that will carry ballast over. He's just got the pace.
Oh yeah, for sure, especially when you put on a performance like this. I mean, 27.5 seconds in front of second place, and that's also considering he had to take a drive-through penalty earlier on in the race. So that kind of just shows you the level that he is on, and he's done incredibly well here today. Like you said, he will carry ballast into the following round, and it's going to be interesting to see how he does with 50 kilos of ballast, how much that can affect him. But he comes around the final corner now to cross the line for what was a very dominant performance and a well-deserved win.
So Sherrod takes first place and gives us some time to go over to Versace, who is, of course, down the road. A big gap coming out from Sherrod up front. So from my side, I definitely want to congratulate him on a stellar drive. But another great drive coming out from Versace, a man who, of course, is also great at hot lapping. And he's built his consistency up to be a formidable force in the pro divisions of the various series here. So a second place coming out in round 6 for Versace. And great pride and joy to my face as I announce third place for my White Rabbit Gaming teammate Bruno Chiedili to stand on that third podium spot. Cap, that McLaren 720S that has been driven, it deserves to sit in a museum after the drive that it's had today. Cap has had to fight off some incredibly quick drivers, and consistency really worked out for him at the end of the day. Taking home fourth place for Kai K Racing. The 321 McLaren crosses the line as we jump over to Antel. The number 111 Isolation 2 Porsche will take home fifth place for his troubles here today. Also had some pace, but also just lacked on some of the consistency to really capitalize on the moves that he was making. Junior McCall will finish just down the road for ATK Racing in 6th place. The 12-year-old driver for ATK Sim Racing still brings a smile to my face as well to announce or to see that he got picked up by a team like that. The McCall brothers really did deserve in great things in sim racing. Charles Wilkin, I feel like, will be the next pickup in the sim racing scene, currently driving for a casual team called Sarko. But you know, when the big names are starting to look, Charles Wilkin will be one of those names to feature, as will Keegan Masters, who's joined up with GeForce Sim to take home 8th place overall. 9th place will go to George Veed. Off of camera, we can just pull up our timetable sheet here and switch back over to our 2-camera broadcast view. Hopefully Ryan has Ryan is maybe gone. Ryan?
Oh, no, I am here.
Okay, Ryan is still here. So we still got Ryan here. We still got me here. There's our little plug. So if you guys haven't followed Ryan on Twitter, it's Ryan the Combox there, and Ryan the Combox on Twitch as well. Ryan, thanks so much for joining me. It's been so great to have you here. Hopefully we can go and jump into some Warzone or something, you know, a little bit casual after such a great race. But what did you think of the South African racing?
It's good. It's very, very good. I mean, 85-minute race, so it's got a lot of time to talk about stuff, and there's quite a bit of action as well towards the end, which is always something that's nice to see. We had some time to talk about some stuff, some esports and sim racing stuff as well. So, I hope people enjoyed that while they were watching as well. But yeah, I think the racing's been good. It's been incredible performance for some of these drivers out there today, and yeah, it's a shame to see some of the people DNF'd early on, like Jason Abswire. It would have been really interesting to see where he could have been in all this, towards the end of the race if he hadn't had that early DNF. But overall, it's been really, really exciting, and yeah, I'd love to come back and commentate on another one at any point if you'll have me in the future.
Most certainly will have you in the future, as long as we don't clash with some of our other arrangements. Of course, lots of announcements and sim racing things coming up. But that's going to be me or myself, George Smith and Ryan Gill, signing out for the evening. RaceFace.Pro, round 6 complete at Nürburgring. We will be back next week, Thursday, bringing you some more race action. And I'm going to go and change scenes and turn off all the stuff and things so that we can get going. So thanks again, guys. It really was a great race.